In millions of Indian homes, the arrival of a newborn means preparing a traditional jula, or wooden palna, lined with layers of soft cotton saris. While intended for comfort, modern obstetrics dictates a different reality, a completely bare, flat, and firm crib. The transition from the protected environment of the mother's womb to the outside world leaves a newborn exposed to extreme respiratory vulnerability. Their breathing mechanics are brand new, and their airway remains highly fragile. This vulnerability can lead to sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. This is the sudden, silent, and unexplained death of a seemingly healthy infant under 1 year of age, almost always occurring during sleep. This model illustrates the core biological defect that allows SIDS to occur. A newborn's brainstem is still maturing. It lacks the advanced waking mechanism necessary to rouse the infant and restart normal breathing if their oxygen supply drops. Generational practices aimed at maximizing a baby's physical comfort introduce fatal mechanical variables into the sleep environment. Because the baby cannot wake themselves up to escape suffocation, strict environmental management is the only defense. Rigorous biomechanical discipline determines the safest bed for a newborn. The sleeping surface must be boring, completely flat, firm, and entirely empty. One persistent myth in Indian households is the fear that a baby placed on their back will choke on their own regurgitated milk. This leads many families to place infants on their stomachs. We can dismantle this myth using anatomical physics. This 3D cross-section shows the exact anatomy of an infant lying flat in the supine position, on their back. Notice how the trachea, the windpipe carrying air to the lungs, sits physically above the esophagus, the food pipe carrying milk to the stomach. If a baby spits up in this position, gravity requires the liquid to work against upward pressure to enter the windpipe. As we see in this simulation, the fluid naturally flows safely back down the esophagus. Choking is anatomically highly unlikely. Now look at the anatomical inversion when a baby is placed on their stomach. The trachea now sits directly beneath the esophagus. This allows fluid to pool at the opening of the airway, drastically increasing the risk of aspiration. Stomach sleeping introduces a second, silent hazard. Pressing a baby's face into a mattress creates a trapped microenvironment of their own exhaled carbon dioxide. As the infant rebreathes this stale air, their oxygen levels rapidly deplete. An adult would wake up instantly, but the newborn's immature brainstem fails to sound the alarm, leading to a fatal hypoxic event. The supine position, lying strictly on the back, is an anatomical imperative. It mathematically eliminates the specific mechanical risks of silent choking and carbon dioxide poisoning. This demonstration illustrates the structural failure of the traditional Indian jula. These Saree hammocks force the infant's heavy head and spine into a C-shape posture. This internal view shows the result: positional asphyxia. The heavy chin drops against the chest, physically kinking the soft cartilage of the windpipe like a bent garden hose, completely cutting off the oxygen supply. The sleeping surface itself must provide equal resistance. Adult beds, memory foam, and layered blankets lack the necessary rigidity to support an infant's airway. This stress test simulation visualizes the 1 centimeter mattress rule. A medical-grade crib mattress must be exceptionally firm. Under the baby's weight, the surface must sink no more than 1 centimeter. If the material compresses further than 1 centimeter, it becomes a lethal hazard. A plush surface will instantly contour to the baby's face if they turn their head, generating an inescapable carbon dioxide trap. A newborn's airway is too structurally weak to maintain itself. It relies entirely on the flat rigidity of the surface beneath it. This brings us to the Rai Katakia, or mustard seed pillow. Elders historically recommend it to mold a round head and prevent plagiocephaly, the harmless flat spots that develop on an infant's skull. This diagram reveals the biomechanical danger. The shifting seeds contour tightly to the infant's skull, locking the neck joints in place. This prevents the baby from turning their face away to clear their airway if they spit up. Plagiocephaly must be managed exclusively through supervised tummy time while the baby is wide awake. Never introduce a pillow into the sleep environment. SIDS prevention requires the absolute rule of the empty crib. This excludes all loose bed sheets, heavy blankets, and stuffed toys, and padded crib bumpers. While originally marketed to protect limbs from the wooden rails, crib bumpers are now medically condemned. They severely reduce ambient airflow within the crib and pose a direct strangulation risk. Every comfort object placed inside a crib acts as an unpredictable variable, increasing the mathematical probability of a mechanical airway failure. Beyond the crib, we must address bed sharing. In India, placing the infant in the parent's bed is common, driven by the desire for proximity and easier breastfeeding. However, adult beds introduce severe, unpredictable structural hazards. They feature thick duvets, soft toppers, and exhausted parents who may lose spatial awareness during deep sleep. This spatial analysis highlights the geometric entrapment risks of an adult bed in red. An infant can easily slip into the gaps between the mattress edge, the headboard, or the wall, and become wedged. The global standard for maximum safety is room sharing without bed sharing. The infant must sleep on their own separate, firm surface in the parent's room for exactly the first 6 months of life. The physiological reasoning for this proximity is critical. Hearing the ambient sounds of the parents moving and breathing stimulates the infant's developing brainstem, helping regulate their respiratory patterns. The final environmental parameter involves temperature. During Indian winters, the cultural fear of a baby catching a chill often leads parents to overbundle infants in heavy woolen razais and sweaters. Overheating is a primary independent risk factor for SIDS. You must maintain the ambient room temperature strictly between 20 to 22 degrees Celsius. This thermal imaging simulation shows how babies regulate body temperature. They vent excess heat primarily through their heads. If you place a woolen cap on an infant sleeping indoors, you block this vital exhaust valve, and their core temperature spikes into the danger zone. A severe thermal overload depresses the brain's arousal mechanism. The overheated infant plunges into a dangerously deep, unbreakable sleep from which they cannot wake. Managing the invisible environment, ensuring close ambient proximity while strictly regulating the temperature, is a life support mechanism equal in importance to the physical mattress. The baseline of safety is strict: a flat, empty surface, exactly 6 months of room sharing, and simple, breathable thermal layers. However, prevention must be paired with active vigilance. Parents must learn to recognize the physical signs of a respiratory system that is actively failing. This clinical wireframe highlights the visual red flag known as chest retractions. Watch the arrows. If the skin pulls deeply inward around the collarbone, the hollow of the neck, or the ribs with every inhalation, the baby is in severe respiratory distress. Listen for persistent grunting. This harsh, rhythmic sound on the exhale means the body is fighting to keep the tiny airways inside the lungs from collapsing. Look for flaring nostrils with every breath, and check for cyanosis, a bluish or grayish discoloration around the lips, nose, or fingernails. This indicates acute oxygen starvation. The ultimate critical metric is apnea. If your infant stops breathing entirely for more than 15 seconds, their system is failing. These biological red flags indicate an acute medical emergency. They require immediate hospital intervention, not traditional comfort remedies.